This video, I'm going to take a look at solving this rational equation. So when we're solving rational equations, first thing we want to make sure we're aware of is values of x that cause some issues. Because in the end, what we want is what x value will make this true. So we also want to be aware of what x values are going to cause some issues, meaning zeroing out our denominators, because we can't have like 3 divided by 0 or any sort of zero value in our denominator. So we want to make sure we understand what can x not be. So like the domain is what we're pretty much looking at here. So x cannot be -2 because of the fact that if we take that denominator of x plus 2, set it equal to 0, and we solve for x, we get x equals -2, meaning -2 plus 2 is 0. That will zero out our denominator, cause some issues. We don't want that. So x cannot equal -2. What else? Let's take a look at x minus 3. X minus 3 equal to 0. If I add 3 over, I get x equal to 3. So x cannot be 3. So x cannot equal +3, and it cannot equal -2. Now, we're not out of the woods just yet. We do have this term over here, x squared minus x minus 6. We do want to factor that because we want to figure out what x values will go in there. Like what if we set that equal to 0, what x values are going to zero that out. So let's check it out. Let's factor that. So what we're looking for here is two numbers that multiply to a -6, add up to a -1. So that's going to be x, so -3 times +2. -3 times +2 is -6. -3 plus 2 is -1. So there it is. So we want to multiply to -6, add to -1. We have it. So the way we're going to write this is x minus 3 and x plus 2. If that threw you off a little bit, if like factoring was like, okay, that was a little much, like I didn't expect that, you got to go back and like do some factoring practice, because solving rational equations, like there's a lot of factoring. There's a lot of factoring involved, and this is one of the more straightforward factoring problems. Like sometimes you might get into a little bit more complicated where this coefficient could be like 5, and that makes things challenging, or you have to factor all 3 terms, or there's more than 3 terms. Like it gets pretty heavy with factoring, so that's probably a skill that you should go freshen up on a little bit if that was a step that really like caused you to stop and say like what just happened here. All right, so that's the same as this, x minus 3, x minus 3, x plus 2, x plus 2. So we don't have to worry about any more values that are going to zero out our denominator. So from here, what you want to do is, there's a couple different ways, but I'm going to move this over here. Let's just toss it over here. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to multiply by the least common denominator. Because what I'm aiming for here is I'm trying to wipe out all the fractions. Like I don't want to deal with this. There's a lot of fractions. So I want to wipe it out by multiplying by least common denominator. And in rational equations, it's not super difficult to notice because you just want all the factors. So we have x plus 2, x minus 3, and then this one has x minus 3 and x plus 2, so we don't have to worry about that. So if we multiply by the LCD, it's going to take care of itself on that end. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equal sign by the least common denominator of x plus 2 and x minus 3. Multiply this side by x minus 2. Hopefully it's okay if I erase this factoring over here. And I'm going to erase this 2. We don't need that anymore. So I'm going to multiply by x plus 2 and x minus 3. So what we want to make sure we're doing is I'm taking this entire expression here, multiplying it by that. So I'm multiplying x plus 2, x minus 3 times 3 over x plus 2. I'm then also taking x plus 2, x minus 3 times this. So you have to take the same terms, no matter what happens here, you still have to take this and multiply it over here. So I have to multiply each, and then same thing over here. You got to do this times all of that. So let's do the left side first. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. So I'm doing 3 over x plus 2 times x plus 2 times x minus 3. So I'll write this out for the video purpose here. So what's going to happen on this first multiple is the x plus 2's are going to cancel. So you're left with 3 times x minus 3. And then we want to do the same thing over here. So we're going to do, I don't know how I want to write this out. I'm going to do it like this. -5 over x minus 3 times the x plus 2, x minus 3, because I want to talk about that minus sign there. It's really easy to make a mistake there. So we're doing negative 5 over x minus 3 times the least common denominator of x plus 2, x minus 3. And then what's going to happen is the x minus 3's are going to cancel this time. So then we're just left with negative 5 times x plus 2. And that's how I wrote it out. Kind of weird maybe, where I wrote it out as this times this, but with the fraction on the left side of it. So you could see the fact that we're doing minus 5 times that, because in the next step, we're going to have to distribute the negative 5. Like, that's a very big point that I emphasize when I teach this to my students, that you got to make sure you're doing negative 5 times x, negative 5 times 2. But I'll get to that in a second. But on the right side of the equal sign, we have the denominator of x minus 3, x plus 2, and we're multiplying by x plus 2, x minus 3. So what's going to happen? X plus 2's, x minus 3 is gone. So all we're left with on the right side is 3. That's awesome when that happens. Now, look at the result. We have no fractions. None. Everything's good now. So no fractions. Now it's just solving an equation. So I'm going to distribute 3, and then I'm going to distribute the negative 5 into there. Make sure you're doing negative 5 because it's minus 5 times x plus 2. So if you did just the 5, if you weren't thinking, like, oh, it's going to be 5 times x, 5 times 2, what would end up happening then is you're going to have minus, in parentheses, that result. So you'd still have to distribute the negative. So let's just do that all in one step by distributing the negative 5. So I'm going to do 3 times x, which is 3x. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10, equal to 3. 3x minus 5x, combining like terms, just solving equations here. 3x minus 5x is negative 2x. Negative 9 minus 10 is negative 19, equal to 3. Solve the equation, add 19. So I get negative 2x equals 3 plus 19 is 22. Divided by negative 2. I'm going through the solving equation steps a little bit quicker, just because I don't want this video to be about solving equations. I'll make sure I'm just emphasizing the solving rational equations. And then 22 divided by negative 2 is negative 11. So x is equal to negative 11. And what I would do then is just double check your answer. So we got x equals negative 11. What were our potential problems? X equals negative 2 and x equals 3 were two x values that x cannot equal, because that's going to zero out our denominator. X equals negative 11. Should be good to go. Not going to cause any sort of problems in there. So that is a good solution, and that's how we solve that. So there's a couple points here where you can really go down a bad path, and that bad path is probably going to be right here, like this whole concept of this negative 5. I emphasize this again and again and again when I teach this, and I still see people make that mistake. So just make sure you're taking your time and aware of like this minus 5 times that. This is minus all of this fraction here. So be careful. Hopefully this helps you out with solving rational equations. Thanks for watching.